As I said in the previous video, in the Americas, agriculture was practiced for the first time in an area known as Mesoamerica. This included the southern portion of Mexico and Central America, which today includes the countries of Nicaragua, Guatemala, so on and so forth. And it was in this area that the first American civilizations appeared. Um, it was because agriculture allowed these people to increase their supply of food and sustain a larger population. Um, Now, you need more than a large population to create a civilization. A civilization also means that you have a complex form of government, a complex religion, social classes, so on and so forth. The very first American civilization was the Olmec. The Olmec were located in the Yucatan Peninsula, what is now the southern portion of Mexico. And they disappeared around 400 years BC. Because they disappeared so long ago, it's difficult to find any physical remains of their empire. The one notable exception to this is the Olmec heads. This is two examples of the Olmec heads. These were carved by the Olmec people out of basalt rocks. And as you can see, they do come in different shapes and sizes, but they share similar characteristics. They all seem to have flat noses and slightly crossed eyes. So some people believe that these may have been common characteristics amongst the Olmec people. These may give us a good idea of what the Olmec people looked like. Several hundred years after the Olmec people disappeared, the next great American civilization, the Maya, appeared essentially in the same area that had once been inhabited by the Olmec. The Yucatan Peninsula, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, this area. The Mayans are well known for their mathematic skills. They developed a very accurate 365-day calendar. They discovered the zero, so on and so forth. Unlike the Olmec, the Mayans did leave behind very impressive ruins that can still be seen today. For example, this is Tikal. This is the largest Mayan city. It's located in Guatemala. It has at least two temples, maybe more. But the most famous Mayan ruins is Chichen Itza, which is located in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. A very impressive structure. As you can see, it's a pyramid with a religious temple located on top. You can see the steps leading up to the temple. There are, in total, 365 steps. This is probably a reference to the total amount of days in the year. That, of course, references back to their mathematical skills and their calendar. The Mayans eventually disappeared around the year 1000, 1100. There were a few of them left by the time Europeans began to arrive, but they were definitely in decline by that point. The most famous of all American civilizations, however, was the Aztec. They were located in central Mexico, the area where the capital of Mexico, Mexico City, is now located. The Aztec capital is the city of, or was the city of Tenochtitlan. Um, According to legend, the Aztec began as a nomadic people. They wandered from somewhere further north into central Mexico in search of a permanent home. And their priest had been told by the gods that they would receive a sign uh, indicating that they had reached their permanent home. And on an island in the middle of a lake, they saw an eagle perched on a cactus with a snake in its beak. And according to the priest, this was the sign that uh, they had found their permanent homeland. If that sounds familiar, that is because the eagle on the cactus with the snake was later incorporated onto the Mexican flag. Also, I probably should point out that the Aztecs did not call themselves Aztec. They referred to themselves as Mexica, spelled Mexica. If that sounds familiar, that is where the nation of Mexico gets its name from. So the legacy of the Aztec live on in Mexico. The Aztecs are probably most famous for their religious practices. There were a large number of temples located inside the city of Tenochtitlan. Um, they practiced, the Aztec priest practiced human sacrifices on a daily basis. They believed that the gods demanded blood sacrifices, and if they failed to do this, then the sun would not move across the sky and their crops would not grow. So, what you see here, the sacrifice of what is probably a prisoner of war. The chest would be cut open, the heart would be removed. This happened on a daily basis. And after the heart was removed, this person would be thrown down the steps of the temple. This is an actual knife used by an Aztec priest to perform human sacrifices. No Native American group discovered steel. Steel was brought to North America by the Europeans. So, as you can see here, this knife may be made out of some kind of stone, but the Aztecs, for the most part, used obsidian for their knife blades. This is a volcanic rock that can be sharpened into a blade. The last American civilization was the Inca, and they were actually not located in North America. They were located in the Andes Mountains of South America. This is along South America's Pacific coast. The Incan Empire actually covered a larger territory than the Aztec or the Mayans or the Olmec. And if you're wondering how the Incan emperor managed to rule over such large of an area, it was because of the Incan road system. It stretched all the way from the northern portion to the southern portion of the empire. Very well maintained road. And runners working for the Incan emperor would carry messages from one town to the next, and so on and so forth. This is by far the most famous Incan city. It's not the capital. The capital of the Incan Empire was Cusco. But Machu Picchu is considered to be one of the seven wonders of the world. And nobody is entirely sure what it was used for. Some people believe that this was used as a home for the Incan priest. Others believe that it was basically a vacation home for the Incan emperor. But whatever the case was, very beautiful city. You see the llama in the foreground. This was actually the only large mammal to be domesticated in North or South America. Um, if you look at the slopes down below the city, you'll notice that they are carved into what appear to be steps. These are terraces, and they were used to grow crops by carving the mountainsides into these patterns. This reduced erosion, and it also allowed the crops to receive more direct sunlight. The most common crop grown in the Incan Empire was potatoes. Um, Lots of potatoes. Uh, Potatoes in the Incan Empire uh, carried as much importance as corn did to the Aztecs or the Mayans.